Hi, everybody. It's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Joanne Stoike with For Better For Worse.
She's Joanne is on the road. Let us know you're there. Today we have Dr. Lew Olson. We're going to be touching on canine nutrition and some basic information and about feeding our dogs and all that. I became very hi Susan. I became very interested. I've been raw feeding my dogs for a very, very long time, and so I did get Dr. Olson's book, and that's, even though I personally don't make my own food because time is a thing, but I wanted to really put the information out there, not a right or wrong, just want to put information out there for people to consider different things. So Dr. Olson, welcome. How did you get started in canine nutrition?
Well, it was a variety of things. I got interested in alternative kind of methods, which that's kind of petered out because I hate to tell people this, but maybe 1% of alternative methods really works. But I had a sick relative, and we basically almost went around the world looking for a cure for something that can't be cured, but when you're desperate, you're desperate. And so I started attending a naturopathic school, and I did my dissertation on canine digestion. And I had a dog with cancer in the 90s. And my breed was Rottweilers, and they die really easily from cancer. And I kept trying to find ways to stop that incident. And so there was a lot of different people looking at nutrition. And I don't know if you remember when the internet used to be, and I'm trying to remember how we did it, but it was like AOL, and
yes,
you'd go into these rooms,
yes. Oh my God, yes.
That would have been the early 90s.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I had like 2 gigabytes or something.
I know.
Right. So those days, it was dial up,
Yeah.
So I started doing research, and there wasn't a lot of research to do on the internet at that time. There was internet, but not everybody had loaded up files for you to look at.
Right.
So I go to college libraries and I'd order stuff and look at things, and that's how I was doing my dissertation too. And it occurred to me that that maybe commercial dog food was not such a great thing, kind of like a moneymaker deal, Mm-hmm. So I traveled in 1998. I went to the Holistic Vet Conference in New Orleans. I think I really wanted to go to New Orleans, but
who doesn't?
It was right after a hurricane. I remember that, and the lobby was flooded in my hotel. But that was kind of weird in its own way, and I won't get into that because they had a lot of different conferences. But Dr. Ogilvy, who worked at Colorado State, was there, and he'd been working for Science Diet, and he was working on a cancer diet. And he had some great information that he shared. The problem is you couldn't make a diet out of that and put it in a can or a bag. So I just started moving more and more away from any carbohydrates for dogs, trying to look at what would be the best balance for calcium, minerals, and vitamins for dogs. And there was a lot of different people looking at that at the time. I went to an Ian Billinghurst conference.
Yes, the barf diet.
Yeah, and I think that was in the early 90s in Dallas. Maybe it was Fort Worth. I don't remember. And got a lot of different ideas and tried to put something together that was workable for people, and started the canine nutrition on Yahoo groups.
Yes.
And maybe it was, and I think it was on something else before Yahoo groups, because we started it in like 1996, 97. And now
Yahoo groups were around then.
Then we have now Canine Nutrition's on Facebook.
Yes.
We've got about 18,000 members.
Mm-hmm. I'm one.
and people get mad at me. So
Yeah, they do. That's
'Cause
okay.
I throw off information that isn't true. And the thing that I try to fight for on canine nutrition is that please, if you're going to put something on there, put a reference with it, or that it's reliable or true or good. And also, if you're going to recommend something, then tell me why and amounts. Like I was grappling today with some people. They were saying a dog had diarrhea, and everybody was saying give the dog pumpkin. Well, too much pumpkin is a laxative. So I kept telling them, offer some kind of further advice, like an amount or such a thing, and also note that you shouldn't give pumpkin to a dog every day because it's very high fiber. So
And they'll go to
people get mad and they quit.
So here's my question. So you're more of a proponent of raw feeding versus, well, could you tell us some of the pros and cons of raw kibble and home cooked? Because one of the things I discovered, this was the first dogs I raw fed. One of my dogs, as he got older, he got I don't know, like 12, 11 or 12, he couldn't tolerate the raw food anymore. He didn't want to eat it anymore, which is weird. And then I've had my other dog that ate it till the day he died. So, so I had to home cook for that particular dog, which was, very hard for me because I work so much. So could you kind of, I know with the kibble, they're in the business of selling dog food. So I get that. And I know you're mostly raw feeding, but what are some of the?
Well, on the canine nutrition list, we've got all kinds of people in there. Some people who feed dry dog food, kibble, and home cooked or raw. And yeah, I think raw is the best way to go. And like you were just saying, it's the easiest way when you do fresh food because you don't have to cook it. So there's that. But home cooked is fine. And there's people who actually, I think for some people, there's as much joy as not only feeding their dogs, but some people like preparing it and cooking it. So if it makes you happy, do it. What I tell people is when you feed raw, no vegetables, no grain, it should just be half raw meaty bones and half muscle meat with maybe some yogurt, eggs, etc. When you do home cooked, it should be 75% animal proteins and 25% non-starch vegetables. I like zucchini squash, broccoli, cauliflower, dark leafy greens. But I can't really say one way is better than the other. I'm kind of lazy. I'm not going to sit down. I mean, I've seen people who pride themselves on, cooking for a whole weekend and making meals for like 3 months and packaging them up and freezing them and,
Yeah, no. Yeah. So yeah, there's just, well, here's my question. Right now I have a 17-year-old little terrier. He's in great health. Gosh. Yeah, he's in really good health. He's raw. He's been raw fed since I've had him. But now he doesn't seem to want to, he's not as interested in eating it anymore. So what are some of the options that we might have as our dogs get older?
Well, when people tell me that their dogs don't like eating something anymore, the first thing I tell them to do is please check their teeth and their gums.
Yes, and I did that, yes.
Okay, because senior dogs can get gum disease, they can get loose teeth, and they just don't want to eat, period.
Right.
Make sure you do blood work to make sure that there isn't something else going on. I mean, once you've covered all your bases and the dog, for some reason, isn't eating it anymore, and you've got to be careful because sometimes you can switch diets and then they'll do that on that. And then they just it becomes like at the grocery store at midnight going, my God, what'll he eat?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, do your homework on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
And some people mix home cooked and raw, and you can mix kibble and raw, and you can mix kibble and home cooked. You don't have to do 100% of one or the other.
Okay.
In my book, Oh my God, I should have brought a copy of my book.
It's on the flyer that these guys got anyway. So it's on
So in my book, I talk about home cooked and raw, and I give recipes, but I also have a chapter on mixing kibble and raw or mixing kibble and home cooked, which is perfectly fine. And each one of those methods is just a few simple rules. Home cooked, the rules get a little different because you have to add calcium because there's no bones. That's why I like raw, of course, because it's minerally balanced if half your meal is raw meaty bones. So
okay.
I'm kind of lazy, so I got other things I got to do.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm thinking, I have 9 sets of dog nails I should do. So, at any rate,
So do I. I do, and I have a couple of cat nails I got to do too.
Oh, great. So there's a variety of ways you can do it. I would maybe not switch this dog 100% one way or the other. I might try a little something.
Mix, yeah. So somebody was asking about DCM that cardiologists recommend 5 kibbles. So, but the veterinarians are always going to recommend kibble. I don't know any vets that recommend raw feeding. Well, a couple.
There are some. The problem with the DCM thing, and pretty much we've all narrowed it down to it's genetic, and it has nothing to do with the food. And to some degree, that's true. Although I'll say this, and there's a couple people I go around and around on this, but it's true. When you cook meat, which contains taurine, which is good for the heart, and protein. When you cook the meat, it leaches it out of there in the juices. So I suspect that dog food companies weren't always real cognizant of that. And so they might have had food that was, deficient in taurine, which might have caused trouble for some dogs. That's why when people feed dried dog food or dehydrated dog food or freeze dried, I tell them to add some fresh food so they're getting the taurine.
Okay. So,
but all the other stuff they said about like designer food and what did they call it? Boutique food. And then they looked at lentils and they looked at flax and all of that. It wasn't that. And it all started with one vet who wrote an opinion piece on it and got everybody going.
Right. So
I have a question again on raw. Because it's becoming slowly a little more popular, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can get the pre-made formulas from a lot of different companies. You can get some just strictly meat. You can go to the grocery store and get it. There are larger companies, no names named, right? Where you can get very cheap beef is usually one of the ones. So, a lot of the laws say you have to denature the meat if it's going to be fed to animals. I think what the least harmful one would be charcoal. I mean, and then you get all the way up the line of some terrible things they do. How does the denaturing process affect the raw food that a dog would ingest?
I don't think a lot of them denature it. Some of them. What is the name of that other process? They were steaming it. It was almost like what do you do with milk? It's like pasteurizing it, kind of.
Yeah, homogenized. That's what small batch did, and that's why it falls apart now. Yep.
Right, and that destroys a lot of stuff. And I've fed food that had charcoal in it, and I just kind of, I think I'd almost rather go with charcoal than homogenizing it and the other stuff, and steaming it or whatever they do, because it just gets silly. And I think most of them don't do anything. I don't think they have to denature it. That may be more state law. I'm not sure, but they don't have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened to that company, that they had to do it because of the regulations in their state, because it was Washington State. Yes. So you somebody asked about that peas and legumes block taurine. Is that true?
Well, excuse me. I'm having a little sip of my Diet Coke. Sorry, it's
No problem.
this or something. Caffeine. So I used to think that, but I don't think so. I don't think that they do block the uptake of taurine. Maybe a high fiber diet does. We still don't know that for sure. But
Yeah.
every dry dog food's high fiber. I mean, they're 40% carbohydrates. You've got to have a bag sit on the shelf and not rot.
Yes, right. So the high carbs are not good for cancer. And so like if we have breeds, like I have Shepherds, some of our listeners have Goldens, the Rottweilers are, riddled with cancer. So have you found in your experience that it's helped the raw feeding has helped? Because I know I can speak from my own experience. I have raw fed for many years and my dogs really live a long, long life. It's not unusual for my dogs to live, like I had a Beagle live to be 18. I had a 80-pound lab live to be 15. I currently have a 17-year-old, so I think it's the diet. None of them are related. So it's not like genetically they're all the same, because they're not.
I don't know. When I went to raw food, it was because of a dog that I had that had lymphosarcoma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first dog I put totally on raw. And the first thing I noticed, he also had hip dysplasia and bad elbows. But the last year of his life, while he was on that diet, it didn't save his life. But the last year he was on that diet, he was more mobile. He could run and play more.
Oh.
So, I did some more investigation, and high carb diets really add inflammation and pain for dogs and probably for people if they're
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I've just lost like 50 pounds just by cutting out carbs and sugar. Just that.
Yeah. So and let me mention something, because the other thing that I've seen, and this gets me in big fights on my list and I lose members, ketosis and keto diets. Dogs don't really go into ketosis.
No. Right.
And that's, I see these keto diets and I just shake my head. There was a place, which shall remain nameless, but some people know who I'm talking about. They actually had dogs in a kennel, and it was in Texas, and they tried to feed them the true keto diet, which is really high in fat.
Uh-huh.
Super high in fat. And their dogs, most of the dogs got sick and got pancreatitis, and some died. So it was really disappointing. But they took that research and they made a diet, and several other calls them keto diets. Dogs don't go into ketosis. So people just knock it off,
Right.
And ketosis does not cure cancer, not even in people. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So the biggest problem I have with people asking me questions about feeding dogs is the misinformation and the gimmicks and the hucksters and the shucksters that are out there, I call them. I mean, it's just awful what people try to sell and promote on the internet. It just makes me shudder.
Yeah. So somebody asked, or Ellen asked, what should we look for in a source for raw food? Like, the other question I had was like, do you rotate proteins? Do you, what are some of if you're going to raw feed, what are some of the things that you should be doing if you're serious about it?
I recommend feeding at least 4 different proteins a week. And, I try to feed things like chicken, beef, turkey, fish, lamb, rabbit, whatever it is you have. And also yogurt, which is beef, or eggs, which is chicken, giblets, which are chicken. And you can feed all of the proteins at once, or you can rotate them from day to day. It doesn't matter. But 50% of the diet must be consumable raw meaty bones. By consumable, I mean that the dog can eat. That like they cannot eat cow legs,
no,
or venison bones, but they can eat a lot of pork bones. They can eat most of the chicken bones, and they can eat turkey necks. And that's to put enough calcium into the diet.
Okay, and you mentioned the vegetables you use are squash and what else?
Zucchini squash.
Zucchini squash. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Cauliflower, broccoli. That's for cooked meals. I don't give any carbohydrates in raw meals. And I tell people when you buy a pre-made raw diet, try to find them that don't have vegetables in them or any additional stuff.
So like for example, Steve's has, or the barf diet has a prey which has no veggies in it at all. I believe.
Well, dogs don't get any nutritional value out of carbohydrates.
Right.
We put it in cooked diets for fiber, for form stools. And I'm trying to look around. I have a dog that is very pregnant and she's making funny noises, but she's dreaming. So, okay. So, just checking. Okay. So, at any rate, when you buy that in a raw diet, I mean, you're paying more money for nothing. I would rather get a diet that had a protein, like let's say beef with ground bone and maybe some heart and kidney and liver in it. I'd be happy.
All right. So, and do you put eggs in their food as well? Or is that part of just a...
Yeah, a lot of people do, and I used to. I don't so much because I have smaller dogs now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, giving an egg to a Rottweiler is a little different than giving an egg to a Russell Griffon. So,
oh, okay.
But I have mixed an egg or two in all of their food and then divvied it up.
Oh, I see. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because I have 3 big dogs and 2 little ones, so
right.
That makes total sense.
Right.
What was my other question? So go ahead, Joanne. Go ahead, Joanne.
Well, I was just gonna jump here because I know that you've mentioned a couple times about, people leave you and people, just how do you get people to believe? Because as far as I have found, like the veterinary community, why would they do studies for something that's they're making money off of or getting kickbacks from, or however you want to put it, right? And they don't teach a lot of nutrition in veterinary school. So is there any science, real studies that have been done that are going to give, real data on kibble versus home cooked versus raw?
No, because there's no money behind that.
Okay.
When I did the research for my book, I found some research on dogs and what they ate because they were using them for human research, sadly. Okay. But I got some information that way. And most of the research they do with dogs has to be done in kennels. So it makes it kind of sad. And it was very hard, but I did learn a lot about canine digestion, which gave me the clues about what they needed to eat. And dogs are different than people. What we do is we eat something that doesn't stay in the stomach very long, but it lingers in the intestines. And what dogs do is it stays in the stomach the longest and then shoots through the intestines because their intestinal tract's about a third or a half the length of ours. They don't ferment food. So with that in mind, what they're built to eat is animal protein and fat. While we're designed where we can eat some carbohydrates with all of that. Dogs flavor with if you give them too much fiber or too much carbohydrates. So they need like animal source vitamin A and things of that nature. They can't use beta carotene very well, and so they get their vitamins mostly from animal-based food. They can't utilize much of what's in vegetables.
Yeah, well, and it's so funny because there's and I don't know if there still is out there because I just talk about shuddering. somebody who put their dogs on a vegan diet, which is absolutely, yeah, that seems to be, it's like, that's crazy. Anyway, so my question is, somebody was asking about goat milk or goat yogurt. Is there any benefit to those?
No,
No?
no.
Just regular yogurt.
Yeah, any kind of cultured milk is fine. The only time I use goat milk is for puppies because it's higher in protein and it's higher in fat. But goat milk is not the best food for dogs unless it's cultured.
Okay.
Now, without getting in trouble, because I can get in trouble. There was a company around that advertised that their food was fermented.
Mm-hmm.
But what that meant is they added probiotics.
Oh, okay.
And that's enough. So, what I was thinking, when I think of fermented, I'm Norwegian. I mean, we pickle fish,
Right.
It's raw fish and cut it up and you put it in a jar and you pickle it. And so I thought, they pickle their food? Well, no, that isn't what they meant. They just added probiotics. So if you add probiotics to any milk product, it's more effective. But a lot of dogs, once they get older, don't do milk very well. So I don't
just like people.
Yeah. I don't encourage people to use goat's milk and it's fattening too much once the dog is grown. But plain yogurt's fine.
Okay. How about fermented vegetables?
Fermented vegetables. Well, sauerkraut,
yes.
I forget, is poisonous to dogs. And I'm trying to remember why. No, I don't recommend fermented vegetables for dogs.
Okay. Just yogurt or some kind of cultured. Okay.
So since you did a lot of work on digestion in dogs, I'm curious, have you seen any correlation between, say, fear or reactivity or noise sensitivity with an unhealthy gut?
Yeah. Two things with that. And I'm dealing with that in a Rottweiler I have right now. She's become a real picky eater. And part of that is she's, what's the word I want to use? A little high strung. Okay. So when people tell me they think their dog has IBD, and she does not have IBD, she just goes on and off her food. And we've all had that happen, with a dog.
Mm-hmm.
They're like a little bit temperamental, high strung, a diva. So, but when people tell me they think their dog has IBD, I ask them a few questions. I said, is your dog an overthinker? Is your dog a worrier? Does your dog have separation anxiety? Those dogs tend to have IBD. So is that your question?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, like in humans, right, there's more neurons in the gut than there is in the brain. And how, if you have an unhealthy gut, you can, it correlates to some health issues and sometimes even behavior issues. So just curious if you've seen dogs like maybe that really do have a true IBD or a processing issue or something, right? Do you see more dogs that have maybe are on a kibble diet or something that might have things that would get cleared up if they switch to a fresh food diet? You
can improve it or clear it up. But
okay.
I mean, it's like with people that are in a stress situation or worry too much, it's going to take longer than, because I've had some dogs that had IBD because they had a real bad case of Giardia and it really kind of destroyed that. Mm-hmm. And once we got that cleared away and the dog's kind of calm to begin with, it was an easier road to hoe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Versus a dog that's already, or a person that's already high strung and trying to get, well, it's true. And because people that tend to be high strung and nervous tend to have more stomach issues than people who aren't, mm-hmm. Which is true of dogs as well. If a dog tends to be a pretty high strung dog, they tend to have lots of stomach issues. I mean,
just look at the morning of any dog sport with the stress of that.
Right. It's true. It's true.
Well,
So,
I think some people can make their dogs
Yeah.
upset and anxious.
yeah, that's what I deal with
Oh.
all the time. So Ellen was asking about green tripe. Do you recommend pro or against that?
No, I use some green tripe with my dogs. Part of it probably depends on where you live and how expensive it is or what kind of bargain. But yeah, it's a good food for dogs. And by green tripe for those, what we're talking about is cow stomach, or it can be lamb or even goat stomach. But all they do is blow it out. They don't bleach it. So that's why it's called green tripe. And just to let people know, no, dogs do not get probiotics or enzymes from green tripe. Just stop that. Stop.
Yeah, it just could be just a good.
Gonna drive me crazy when they keep saying that. No, because what enzymes cows would need is totally different than what dogs would need to digest food.
Yeah.
So since you mentioned that, let me ask a question about probiotics. I was told, which seemed like very soon, but I was told 3 weeks. You should rotate out. If you're going to give probiotics, you should only give the same one for 3 weeks and then rotate to something different and something different because they build up kind of a tolerance or whatever. Is that true or?
No, you're trying to drive me crazy. No. They only need a couple of kinds, the acidophilus and the bifidus, and they can get the other kinds. There's like 3 other kinds. I mean, you could switch it up, but I would probably wait until the container was done, and then maybe try another one. But,
Okay, so not necessary. All right.
I mean, it's this kind of stuff that drives me crazy. People come across these little things on the internet that
Yeah, right.
that
It was
just.
actually a vet that told me that. So,
Oh my God. Okay. All right.
right? But I mean, there's so much like.
Well, there was a vet who told one of the people on canine nutrition that they shouldn't give her dog Pepsid because it will destroy the things in the dog's saliva that'll help her digest food. And I went, what? Okay, we'll just move on. But I had a vet once tell me not to feed pork because they eat off the ground.
Oh yeah, I've heard that too.
And I'm really glad that cows and chickens use porcelain plates to eat on.
So somebody asked about sodium.
Mm-hmm.
If that affects dogs.
I need more context.
Yeah, it's like, how does sodium affect dogs?
Well, you don't have to add it to food, but sodium is used in dry dog food as a preservative. So the highest food in sodium or salt you can feed your dog is dry dog food. So what does it make them do? It makes them drink more water.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not gonna.
Right. And somebody asked, because one of the big controversies, and I'm sure you're aware, the therapy groups don't want to allow dogs that eat raw, that are raw fed, cannot be therapy dogs because.
They're still doing that?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Like my dog could be a therapy dog, my shepherd, but he can't because I raw feed him. So.
Well, then you just tell them that you feed dry dog food and move on. Okay.
Right. Which, yes, yeah. So, but
I mean, how do they know?
Right. That's true.
I'm understand.
So then my other, yes. See, I always get in trouble too, Lou. So I understand. It's awful when you say what you think and people get all anyway. But so somebody asked about dogs that eat their own poop. Is there anything you can do to help? Any additive? I have found the only way
I was hungry, but now I'm not.
Yeah. Well, it's like right now the only thing I found to help with that is pick up the poop so the dogs don't practice.
Right. There's 3 reasons a dog will do that. One is boredom.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that means that you're not entertaining your dog enough. And the other reason is you're not picking it up quick enough. And the third reason is if a dog eats a high carbohydrate diet and you neuter or spay them, and then they become like food machines. Carbohydrates don't digest well in dogs. So they kind of come out the same way they went in, so they can still eat them. It's like it's kind of like horse poop, But but habit is the worst part, and especially if they came in a litter where that they learned that as a puppy.
Yes,
it can be a problem. There is no magic answer for that. Feeding raw usually helps it a little bit because they're digesting the food better. Picking up the stool helps quite a bit.
Right.
I don't have a magic answer.
Yeah, because that's a tough one, right? Because it's like some dogs do it, some dogs don't. It's challenging. So one of the somebody's asking about her young dog ended up with diarrhea and it was bloody. Can you answer, like, why is some of the dogs, I think when dog's stomach gets irritated, it becomes a little bit bloody, the stool, and
if the colon gets irritated, which is the last part of the intestinal tract, there can be blood in the stool. And if you see that, I don't get really alarmed. Because when you need to get alarmed is if the stool is like coffee grounds and smells metallic. Then you get alarmed and you run your dog to the emergency clinic or your vet. It's a copper smell, like pennies, but it looks like coffee grounds. That's when you get alarmed. But usually if, the colons become irritated and it's not a puppy, I just don't feed them for a few hours. The colon recovers pretty quickly. And then I give frequent small meals for a while and start adding probiotics.
Right. So somebody asked about her former vet warned her about feeding dogs with bone. She said that the bone fragments stay in the dog's system. Is that true? I have not found that to be true.
Not in the 35 years that I've been feeding it or in forums with people who do. I had a puppy I sold, a Rottweiler puppy. It swallowed a pork neck bone.
Wow.
Like whole, and it was like a 10-week-old puppy. And she took it to her vet every day. And what she learned was that it got smaller and smaller in the dog's stomach until it was digested.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and I've had dogs eat, if you feed them too much, like people give them too many leg quarters or things like that, you can get slivers of bones and chunks of bone come out in their stool, but it's still don't feed them as much, because you're just overloading their system, but it doesn't like strip them out. The two times I've seen trouble is people feeding whole turkey necks, the big ones. There have been dogs that choked on them.
Yes.
So I cut them up. I use a meat scissor or a cleaver. And the other thing is, don't feed turkey wings unless you really cut them up, because they have spines where they open up to fly, and those can perforate the intestines.
Yeah. So yes, I learned the lesson the hard way when I bought my 8-week-old lab puppy home, and I gave her a very small chicken neck, and she swallowed it whole. I'm like, well, there you go. So now I cut them up or I grind them, and that's how she gets them. Because she can just not be okay. So yeah.
But even if they can swallow them whole, usually they'll digest them. And a chicken neck is really, really super digestible.
Yeah. Well, and I wasn't so worried about the digestion. I was worried about her choking on them.
Right.
That's how she was going to eat them. Was my biggest concern. It wasn't so much the digestion. I wasn't worried about that. It was just her choking on it. So I was like, So somebody asked, how do you treat dysbiosis and SIBO, and can diet play a role?
What?
dysbiosis. I am not sure what that is.
SIBO, I think those are bacteria.
Okay.
We've just had this conversation. I think SIBO's the one that you give B12 to. Look at this. I have to look it up. I don't remember. SIBO, yeah. Chronic intermittent diarrhea, a lot of gas. Dogs suffer weight loss, stunted growth, et cetera, eat stool. And they give medications for that. And the problem with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is what I tell people is when your dog has diarrhea, and let's say you take that loose stool to your vet and they look at it, anytime a dog has diarrhea, they're going to have more bacteria in their stool because they're dehydrated. Okay. So it gets kind of crazy. And I don't have a big answer to that, but usually, again, feeding smaller, more frequent meals, adding L-glutamine, adding the Birdie's digested blend, which has probiotics and animal-based enzymes, helps those situations. Sometimes the vets want to give them antibiotics, which if it is SIBO, and you never really know, would help. But if it's not, it's going to make the diarrhea worse.
Oh, wow.
That's what antibiotics do. So, no, the number one cause of diarrhea in dogs is overfeeding. And the next one is too much fat in the diet. And the third one is too many carbohydrates in the diet.
Oh.
So, but people get, they get pretty overwrought if their dogs have diarrhea. I'd love to tell you I look at my dog's stools, but I don't. I look at the dog. I look at the dog.
Yeah.
And if the dog has horrible diarrhea, I'm going to know because it's going to happen in the house.
Right. Right.
But you can't really monitor your dog's health from their stool unless it's blowout diarrhea. Then you're going to worry. But people seem to look at that as some sort of religious kind of experience to the health of your dog, and it's not the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, diarrhea usually. Well, my dogs very infrequently ever have diarrhea, so and usually it's actually I can't remember. Usually for like my older shepherd, she's 13. If she had too much liver, that affects it. So and then I just don't give her as much, and it's fine. But there are some dogs that are chronically have diarrhea, and it doesn't take much to throw their system off balance and get sick.
People use the term sensitive stomach, and there's no such thing, but it's become a kind of a catch-all. So let me say this. When dogs eat dry dog food only, some of them get really irritated in the gut from the dry dog food. Because a dog, if you think about a dog, they're not meant to eat dry food. They're meant to eat moist food. And that's kind of how their digestive system is built. So what happens is the lining of their intestinal tract becomes irritated. So that's when we use L-glutamine to try to treat that and some of the digestive enzymes in the small frequent meals. So that's one thing. And then, because I can remember when I used to feed dry dog food years ago, if I switched brands, my dog would get diarrhea. So it isn't exactly sensitive stomach, but they get almost like so in tune to one thing that when you feed them the same thing day in and day out and day in and day out, they have a tendency to get an upset stomach if you switch that on them. And it's not that way so much with a raw diet where suddenly I'll get another meat or I'll do this or that, and everything stays the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me ask you, how about dogs with that have that enzyme deficiency? Is there anything, will diet help that EPI?
I've tried working with a few people. Usually they have to get the enzyme, the prescription for the enzyme.
Okay.
Um, uh, the the trick there is to feed a lower fat diet, which is hard because they're reacting to the fat mostly. And when you feed the lower fat diet, dogs lose weight. So that's one of the few times I help them find starches to add for calories, like sweet
Oh,
potato and things of that nature.
like what?
Sweet potato and things of that nature. But you have to be careful with that because that can be irritating to the gut too. And
Oh,
so every dog is different. So we kind of go back and forth with it.
okay. All right. Hi again. Okay. Yeah, because it's we so with EPI, fat is the bigger problem than
Yeah, they're having trouble with fat digestion,
oh.
a lot of it. But it's genetic. You get shepherds,
Yeah. Well, like my shepherds have more like lab stomachs, but yes, I've known. My shepherds have more labby stomachs than shepherd stomachs, but yes, where they can pretty much eat anything and it's fine.
Right.
But both my shepherds and my lab were weaned onto raw. Their breeders weaned them onto. So, do you wean your puppies do you put them on raw when you start putting them on regular food?
Yeah, yeah. And I did that with the Rottweiler puppies. Now I do it with the Brussels Griffon puppies. And like they're what, 2 pounds? But so I feed them ground pre-made. I have a grinder too, and I can grind chicken necks and backs if I want to, but that means I have to get a burst of energy.
Amen, sister.
Considering there's nothing else on my plate. So yeah, I start them out on like ground beef and ground pork and ground chicken and yogurt and cottage cheese and green tripe. And I was a little hesitant, with these toy dogs because I breed them, and I show them, and finding a home for a Rottweiler, which is usually, they're usually determined young men or women. Okay, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And now I'm selling a Brussels Griffon, which is like mostly women my age,
Yeah. Amen. That's right. As we get older, they get smaller. Just how it goes.
So and they really want these puppies, and I said we have to feed raw or anything. I just want one, but I walk them through it very carefully, and because with the Brussels Griffon that's got the crowded mouth, feed the raw diet is a thing of beauty because it's the carbohydrates that rot the teeth and stain them and put the plaque on. So that cute little toy dog is going to have nice white teeth when they're 5-6 years old. They're not going to have those dimples as often or ever.
Yeah. Well, Lou, now that you mention it, because my 17-year-old just now had dental issues and not very much considering how little dogs have terrible teeth. He didn't, but he was also raw fed forever, like
right. And I've had a couple of dogs that still had bad teeth because they can have genetically bad enamel. That can happen.
Yeah, no, I had one, but no, this guy's a rescue, so I got him as a rescue, and this is the first time we had any really teeth issues. And my 13-year-old shepherd, her teeth are pretty awesome. They look really good, but she's also been eating raw her whole life. So
right.
So it has not, but usually big dogs don't have it. Ellen says that Shelties have terrible teeth. I know that.
Shelties?
Yeah, I haven't met too many that had good teeth. So just saying. Okay, so you raise your puppies. You wean your puppies onto raw. Yeah.
Yeah, and I start them on fish oil capsules, and the Birdie's Immune Blend, which is actually a supplement I designed, but I don't sell it. The Naturals does, but because it's got all the vitamins in it, and it's got probiotics in it, and some other stuff. So just to get them on the right path. More.
Mhm. Yeah. So you designed that. So you're not somebody else sells your.
Yeah. I just wanted somebody to make it so I could have it. No, don't have me sell stuff, because I would take orders and then never mail it out.
So you did the right thing by having somebody else just do that.
It'll get done. It'll get done nicely by this fellow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do consults, but I do half-hour consults on nutrition and diet for $60 for half hour with 3 follow-ups, and I do remember to do those, because I don't have to mail anything out and go to the.
Yeah, and you maintain your. So if anybody's interested, she does have that Facebook group that's Canine
Nutrition.
Canine Nutrition. And today I saw that you had posted somebody was giving their dog. Oh my God, what was it? An oil. Oh my God. So you do give fish oil, but there was an oil that they were giving their dog that was not good, that you said it was bad for them, and I can't remember what it was.
I don't know. Well, never give plant oils to your dogs. Not flax oil, not coconut oil. None of those are good for dogs. It needs to be fish-based oil, and capsules is best, because the darn fish oil is so fragile that if it's, even when you have a pump, it's exposed to air, it loses some of its integrity.
Oh, okay. So the capsules are better.
Yeah.
Oh.
If people want to buy a jug of it, they can, but use it up in a week.
Yeah. That's what it was. MCT oil. You said. Yeah.
No.
Somebody was giving their dog MCT oil. That was it. That was because it's like
plant oil. It's medium chain oil.
Yes. Yeah. Somebody. That's what I was like. Because that's what. Yeah. It's like. I was like, I've never heard anybody giving their dog that until I just saw that post on that thing. I was like,
coconut oil is MCT oil.
Yeah. So that's not.
It's not gonna. No, dogs. The fish oil does the most for them because of the omega-3. There are omega-3 in flax oil, but dogs can't convert the omega-3 in plant-based oils to a usable form.
Okay. So then, if you give them coconut oil or whatever, it's just not gonna.
No.
It's not gonna do anything for them.
No, and that's why I get so mad about marketing, and I see new products. I mean, I fought coconut oil, for years. Right now, we had a big fight, on diatomaceous earth. No, that doesn't kill worms. It'll kill only insects with exoskeletons, and the powder has to be dry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't eat it. No. And we had a big fight on bone broth today. No, bone broth does not help arthritis or joint pain or anything else. So I posted some articles. Bone broth. What's bone broth? It's chicken soup. Come on. Okay. So, and putting apple cider vinegar in your bone broth does nothing to leach out the minerals, because I posted they did a study on it, and you can boil that stuff for weeks and still have very little calcium, phosphorus, manganese, and all that. So
right. So somebody mentioned about mushroom supplements.
If you're going to give them to dogs, try to find an extract, because I put it in the gum line. I tried turkey tail myself. I think I bought like a jug like that. Didn't do anything for me. For a while, they thought that there's an extract in some of the mushrooms called Ganoderma that helps with the immune system, but I haven't seen it really come that much to light. Animal Essentials makes a mushroom extract called Mycotriplex, which is, if I was going to try one, it'd be that one.
Microtriplex. Let me see.
Myco triplex, and I'd put it in the gum line.
They did find that mix was good for dogs who have been diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma, though, right? I thought they did.
Well, that was done in a lab, and
Okay.
I think if it really worked, we'd have people who had dogs with that who said, my dog is cured. And, I'm a skeptic because I've been fooled so much over the years. Come on. I lived in San Francisco for a while in the 70s. I believed in auras. Come on. So, you just kind of come down off all that stuff and you research it. And most of it's not true.
Okay.
I think there's something in mushrooms that might do something. Same with turmeric, but
Yes,
turmeric doesn't do anything either yet. They're still researching it.
they're still researching it. Yeah. Yeah, the turkey tail. So, Ellen, the turkey tail mushroom is what they say helps with if the dog already has cancer. It doesn't. There's nothing supporting that it can prevent it or slow it down or.
And turkey tail is supposed to also be good for neurological problems. But I have some because of my arthritis, but it didn't help it. I mean, I was practically got so desperate, I was like,
Yeah, no, it's because I know with the turkey tail they had done some studies that it helped if the dog already had a cancer, but if it didn't, like I give it to my dog in the hopes that maybe she won't get cancer, but I don't. That's just a hope. No.
There was a study done by a university on the East Coast. Dr. Waters did it, and he tested all these old Rottweilers that lived to be past 13, and he got to do he would take them and do the necropsy, and what he said was that all of the old dogs had cancer, but it just hadn't spread. They'd be 15, 16, 17. That isn't what killed them, but they still had it in them. So what happens is I think we all get cancer, but something goes haywire and
it spreads. Yeah.
We allow it to go.
Yeah.
So one of the other kind of newer hot items I'm just curious if you have any experience about is collagen. Have you experimented with any of that?
Tried it for my face.
Did it work? Did it work for your face?
So did I, Dr. Lew.
I took collagen capsules. I took collagen capsules for my arthritis. And did it help? No.
I don't think it does either. I mean, I don't think it's like doing harm, but I didn't see any benefit.
No, collagen doesn't do anything. Gelatin doesn't do anything. Soaking, gold raisins and gin doesn't do anything. I mean,
for a drink? I haven't heard about that.
That's an old one. I do. If you have bad knees, Boswellia can help stop the pain in the bad knees.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah, the collagen. I did try it for my face. I totally did.
I think I have a jar of it.
Yeah, well.
Nancy tried to sneak it into my coffee once. I was like, what did you put in here? This is gross. So
I mean, when anytime you see a supplement and they say it does more than two things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for people and for dogs, for sure.
I mean, it's like you can wax your floor and, apply it to a wound,
Right. I know. You can wax your car and get rid of your wrinkles.
I know, cure cancer. What the hell? Yeah. Anything that says it'll cure cancer, kill parasites, cure asthma, and sadly HIV, because that's what my brother died of, and that's what we went around the world trying to cure. I was going to say a bad word, but it's
yeah. Right. Okay.
Money then.
It is always, money makes the world go round in many ways. So
yeah,
anyway,
you should develop a CBD supplement. You'd make $1 million. Just saying.
And CB, that does nothing too.
I know that we've seen. The only thing it helps some is
The stockholders. It helps the stockholders.
yeah, right.
It helps with, I think it does help with pain, like, right, as a supplementation to it, right?
I think it can help with pain if it has THC in it.
Yes.
And you can't give THC to dogs.
Right.
Correct.
Well, I didn't say it was for dogs.
It's for people.
And I think the THC just, you go, oh, okay. As I can recall, that was been a long time. I did grow up in the 60s.
What are we talking about? What happened?
So Marge says, what supply vitamins in raw diet did you mean by animal vitamins, not vegetable-based vitamins?
Okay, so dogs don't get, they can't use beta carotene. They need to have D3, which is from animal sourced, because there's D1 and D2. So I tell people you have to make sure, and you don't have to worry about vitamin A so much if you're feeding red meat or organ meat, because there's going to be in there.
Right.
But in raw diets, I like to add D3, and it's in the Birdie's Immune Blend and the Birdie's Daily Blend, because it's harder to get in food, or you can supplement with it if you wish, but make sure it's D3. And if you go on the b-naturals.com website and you look on the top, it says newsletters and recipes. You can click on that, and there's one about 3 months ago we wrote, which is by category. You can find things like D3. It's an article that I wrote that tells you the best kind to write, or IBD, or one of the popular ones too is like bladder stones and things of that nature. Is, I've written articles since 1998, and they're all on that website.
Okay, and I put the link to the website there so that you guys have it.
And my book. If you all bought my book, I'd be really happy, because
that's right. Well, I have it
from there.
Birdie's Blend is
Birdie's Immune Blend, Birdie's Daily Blend. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I would go to the website. It's there, right?
Right. And he also makes a probiotic powder that's $13.95 for a pound, which is heck of a deal.
Wow.
Right.
We say in Minnesota, heck of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's there. And also the Canine Nutrition Facebook page.
It's the letter K, the number 9, and then nutrition all together without the spaces.
And I will put that link on there as well so that you have it.
And I do give consults.
So I put all those links on the comments. Thank you so much, Dr. Lew, for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of, the name of her book is on the flyer, Deb, on the flyer that we did on the Facebook page. Her book title is right there.
Yeah, it's raw natural nutrition for dogs, and it has recipes in it for.
Yep, it's awesome. I
have
that book. It is fantastic. I've used it for the years, and it's been awesome. I refer to it all the time. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. We so appreciate it. Your time and all your information. It was great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.